us this morning. President Dr. Julius Maada Bio last week received a 3-year report from the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion, highlighting the Commission's effort to rebuild partnerships with local and international stakeholders to enhance its independence and effectiveness in the country. Now, the President, however, praised the Commission for its impactful work over the past 3 years, describing the establishment of the Peace Commission as a deliberate and visionary step. While acknowledging initial challenges, he commended the Commission for its achievement in fostering peace and national cohesion. Now, the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion was born out of a 3-day national dialogue, which was dubbed Bintu Mani 3 in May 2019, and later was set up by an Act of Parliament in December of 2020 to undertake measures to prevent, manage and resolve conflicts in the country. Now, so this morning, we have been joined by Hawa Saleh Samai, who is acting as the Executive Secretary of ICPNC, to talk more about their journey so far. Good morning and welcome. Yeah. It's a pleasure. Also joining us this morning is Doreen Barry, founder Don Tony Organization for the Aged, dubbed DOFA. She's here to talk about the official launch of the program titled Feed the Aged. Good morning, Doreen.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Good morning, ladies.
Yes.
You look so good in these Africana attires.
We should promote our national content.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know you're doing so brilliantly.
Thank you.
Now we'll start with the Peace Commission. You're young, but as the President had echoed, your work has been quite tremendous. Take us through the journey. How has it been 3 years down the line?
Well, as we all know, that business startups are not generally the best and easiest. So for the journey of the Peace Commission itself, it has been a roller coaster, especially when it was set up at the eve of elections. So 1 year to election, this Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion was set up, and we remember that we did not even have an office space then, and we have to squat in other offices to ensure that we start this milestone that we've achieved so far. With cooperation from staff and the board members, remember we also have very dynamic board members, and these board members were selected from every region, so regional representative based at their region, not in Freetown, except for the one for Western area. We also have the representative of all the Paramount Chief, that's the head of Paramount Chief. Chief Asoluku is also part of the board. We have a representative from the civil society, Valnora Edwin is part of that. And we also have a representative from the religious bodies added to our 5 regional, and the chairman. Initially, we had Mr. Mansare as our board chair, and after a year, he resigned due to his ill health. And that another 1 year down the line, we also had Reverend Shudanke Johnson, who's been the chair and current chair of the Peace Commission. For short, that's how we call it. And until we had an office space, the Peace Commission is under the office of the President and is supervised by the Chief Minister by extension. And we have, of course, imagine starting at the eve of election, where most of the time all the donor partners have allocated their budget to specific institutions, and the Peace Commission was never part of it. And we have to step in now, and for the country to know that we're here and work not only in isolation, because we do not work in isolation. We ensure that we bring everybody on board, because peace itself should be owned by the populace, not by the Commission. to bring everybody on board, we had to do a lot of sensitization, visitation to the district. Every district, we visited every district. We had jingles on the air. We knew that we also had civil societies that have been working on peace building before the setting up of the commission itself. So we had to bring this peace NGOs or CSOs on board by setting up district peace coalitions to help us implement and do facilitate our roles and responsibilities for us to have extensive coverage of the country itself. We're also part of the architecture of the security sector in the country, so we also have to work with all the systems and structures that have been set up by the security, that's DISEC, PROSEC, and knowing that the paramount chiefs and the religious leaders are key essence ingredients to our work. We also had to ensure that we bring them on board. They also benefited from training which was facilitated by the Kofi Annan Institute to build up their capacity in terms of mediation and conflict prevention at the district level. Same training went out to civil society on the ground and also youth, because youth are key. The youth made up bulk of the population in Sierra Leone, so we cannot do without them. We've also set up the school clubs in school, Peace School Club, which we're still doing. We've not done that extensively, and soon we'll be signing an MOU with the Ministry of Education in that light, so that we would have at least every school have a peace club to help monitor, mediate, and prevent conflict at that level, and help the kids to take peace building, not just in school, but also to take them to their different houses and their communities. Families an ingredient to that.
I presume your work is quite, daunting, given that we're living through a time that is, heavily toxic. The language is heavy, and between or among political lines, there is a very thick cloud of resentment, tribalism and religious bigotry, in a way. We've had a failed attempted coup, protest across the country where a lot of people were killed, How has work been for you? Do you describe it a walk in the park or a very daunting one?
I'll say it's always an uphill task, a challenge. But that's why the commission was set up. That's why the commission was recommended by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission back then, to ensure that we have this institution to manage and prevent and mediate conflict when necessary. Against that background, we have been working, as I mentioned, we cannot work in isolation. And we've been bringing all of those different sectors and political ambits on board. We've worked with political party to the extent that even with court ruling where the court have mandated us to sit with opposition political party and babysit them to their convention. That's how much trust have been built in past years. We've also worked across party lines where we've mediated issues. We've mediated with the ECSL and opposition. We've mediated conflict with the government and opposition. We've mediated with teachers union and the Ministry of Education and the government. We've also mediated with women's organization and the government, and we've done so as well with strike from bike riders, keke drivers, motor drivers union, and the government. These are different steps and milestones that we've been able to achieve. Why? Because of trust. Trust is not something you earn, but it's something we built over the years. For the last 3 years, we've made sure that we stay independent as best as possible to our knowledge, but you will be able to assess us in that light. And we've also been able to stay apolitical And that's why we've been able to mediate between government institution and even opposition political party. And I've also been able to work with all political parties with a very open door policy. So I'll not say it's a roller, it's a ride, but it's been a roller coaster. Some days you have to have sleepless nights, sleepless months to achieve our goal. But as I mentioned earlier, that's why we're set up. And I'm sure that we've been able to meet with most, if not all, of the challenges. And this is not just for Freetown. It's right across the country. We've been also able to mediate issues with powerman chieftaincies, powerman chief and their subjects across different chiefdoms, not just in one political area, but the east, the north, the west, the south, and even with tribal heads, we've also done a lot of mediation. So it means that we've covered a lot of grounds and also built trust across the country, across tribal lines, across regional lines, across political parties, and we hope that we'll continue in that light.
Doreen, your work is truly extraordinary, but help us understand this morning, when you say aged, what age bracket are you looking at?
We're looking at 60 and above.
Okay.
Many a times, many people, when they get to 60, they do not want people to refer to them as aged. But one thing people need to understand in life is that you just have to get old. As long as you have long life, you definitely get old, and it is something people need to be proud of, because not everyone gets old. It's a golden opportunity for someone to reach at that age, especially for us, living in Africa, Sierra Leone in particular.
Now, against which particular backdrop did you envision, this vision to create DOFA? What are you aiming to solve in society?
The thing I'm aiming to solve, especially for us in Sierra Leone, is for us to create, an enabling environment for all people. When you look at what is going on in Sierra Leone, much preference is not given to old people. We tend to, neglect them. We tend to abandon them, thinking that they are no longer important, forgetting that they have been there before us. They have made their own contribution, and looking at where they are now. There are certain things we need to go back to them, especially when we've gone wrong, or maybe we are finding it difficult to make success in certain areas. I believe those are the right people who can help us to take us to a right destination in society.
How many of these, well, I'm refraining from using the word aged, people, are you ladies and gentlemen, how many of these ladies and gentlemen are you housing at the moment?
I would say we are dealing with thousands,
okay,
including Freetown and certain parts of the provinces, because when you look at Sierra Leone, we have over 300,000 old people in Sierra Leone, and for us, we wanted to do more, but finance is a great challenge. What we depend on in terms of supporting old people comes from individual support. Sometimes we have support from the Ministry of Social Welfare, like they give us a grant every year, but last year we could not have the grants. We don't know what is the problem, and what they are giving us is not that much. But again, you cannot blame the ministry, because when you look at what they are receiving from the Ministry of Finance, it's nothing good to write home about. But I believe as a country, we need to put more preference on old people, because most people who are occupying certain positions now, they will get old one day. Those who are old now, they were in those positions over the years. So it is of essence that to pay much preference on old people. They have done so much for this country, and when they get old, just abandon them. Some of them, they are not receiving much when it comes to the NACIT and pension. Some are not even receiving, the NACIT scheme, and it's very, very challenging. Some old people, they have lost their children. Some of them, they have families who can no longer look after them. It's quite pathetic when you look at the stories of old people in Sierra Leone. But I believe if all of us come together and government put more preference on old people, I believe that old people will also have a better life like those who are living in other parts of the world.
You mentioned that access to funds have been quite constraining. How do you get money to run your organization?
It has been very challenging, sleepless nights. I'm all over the place, calling people, even Madam Sally, sitting next to me will attest to that.
Oh, she's a very big donor.
Of course, sometimes I have to call her. She supports me personally, not from the commission. Sometimes to do fundraising activities. Even what we are launching today, I do not have any funding, to do it. But we receive a lot of rice, a lot of oil, and palm oil during the festivity. So we sit down and said it will be of essence for us to use some of those stuff and see how we can go to communities, prepare a lunch for all people, because most of them go to bed without having 1 square meal a day. So we still fighting it and still asking governments to come on board more and more, because what they are giving us is nothing, is nothing you can be proud of. But I believe there is always a starting point. We appreciate what they are doing at the moment, but we just want them to do more. We see how much preference they are giving to women and girls, and forgetting that their final destination in life is old age. So we should do the same thing, as to what we are doing towards women and girls in Sierra Leone.
Sally, back to you. Are there any challenges, visible ones, that you'd point to this morning that are, in a way, creating a stumbling block for the work you do at the Peace Commission?
I'll talk about some of the challenges that have gone to success, and we're still working on them. And that's one key area of trust. Trust, not only national trust, but also donor trust. Remember, we're an independent commission. And according to our independence, the government should be taking care of our administrative costs, while the donors and international partners should be taking care of our programmatic costs. This will enable us to live or to operate independently, so that we will not be micromanaged in terms of situations and circumstances that we encounter across the country. And that had been before a very uphill task, because remember, we were set up by the government of Sierra Leone, so our independence and under the office of the president was very questioned by international partners. And but working with our nationals, and I haven't seen how we were able to work in very difficult situations before elections, during elections, and even after elections. The donor built some resume of confidence with the commission, and as I speak to you, some of them have been coming up to us to see how we could work in partnership with them. But before that, it was almost nil. The government had to support over 90% of our operations, which should not have been happening. And we hope that would not be happening in coming years, but more donors would come on board. Funding is a crisis in every institution across the country. But we should realize that even with the big 5 game changers, without peace, we will not be able to implement it. The president says that peace and social cohesion is the vehicle to implementing the 5 big game changers. So that shows how important peace and social cohesion is in all of this. And we should also, one of the other thing is how more we could operationalize, because we have our regional offices, how we could operationalize that to the full, so that things will be nipped at the board before things escalate. Because as I speak to you, we don't even have, I will always say we have 1.5 vehicle, because we had 1 new one and 1 second-hand one, which was still, you know what second-hand vehicle is like in Sierra Leone, which was still managing. We need regional, because regional offices covers 4 and above districts. How could they be going to mediate chiefs and they go on bikes, hired keke, to mediate powerman chiefs disputes? So we need to give them that clout and importance that they deserve to implement our morals and mandates, and to work with the stakeholders at that level. That's one of our critical things that we need, apart from the main funding, to make sure that we do operationalize our mandate in full. And one of the other critical things is that how we could get everybody on board. Some people just do not want peace. That's normal. Everybody have a right to what they, but there's also a right to peace. We must realize that the African Union have right to peace. And that means everybody have to ensure that you extend the hand of being peaceful. So we hope that people will continue to come to us where there are issues, and we would continue to go back to them and help them out with the issues, but we want it to be community owned, because that will bring lasting peace. As I speak to you, the Africa doesn't have any country that could boast of positive peace. Even the best peaceful country in Africa is still suffering from negative peace. How can Sierra Leone work from war to peace and from negative peace to positive peace? That's the goal of the Peace Commission, so that we'll be able to tell a complete story of where we're coming from and where we've arrived.
The sociologist John Galton had, advanced a lot of theories around peace and peace building and the likes. But let's take a local context, for instance. You just spoke about positive and negative peace. How peaceful would you say Sierra Leone is at the moment?
Sierra Leone is one of the most peaceful countries around the world. I could boast about that. That doesn't make us the most peaceful country in Africa. I'll tell you that Sierra Leone is one place that you could come to and feel peace. And this is not just about the Peace Commission or myself giving that testimony. These are testimony both from international and local people that we're working with. When we went to do the presentation of our reports, President himself attests to that. He says that international people that he meets and have been coming in always say that Sierra Leone is very, very peaceful.
How are they able to judge that?
Okay, let's go to the Global Peace Index, for example. For our region, that's the West African region, we find out that we're the second most peaceful country in West Africa. Ghana's leading, right? And when you go out in the streets of Sierra Leone at night, how many people stop you and query you or question you? How many armed robbery reports do we have? How many kidnaps have we heard about? Most of the time when you hear about loss of kids or something, in the next few days you hear that we found them again, right? And how many of, even with strikes, how often do people go out with strike? I was in Kenya the other day, and Kenya is like almost every other day there is one strike, blockade of this road and that road. Same even when you go to Ghana. There's always one strike or the other. But not in Sierra Leone. Even when people come out, they don't stay out for that long. Everybody wants to go about their normal business and attend to their normal duties again. So this is one of the things that make us peaceful. It's easy to do business. It's not like you don't get duped or don't get robbed here. But when you look at the percentages compared to other countries and their percentage, you definitely find out that we're very peaceful. And when you also look at our religious tolerance, it's been found out that we're one of the most religious tolerant countries around the world, where today you'll be invited to a Muslim wedding and you attend, tomorrow you go to a Christian wedding, where in some countries you don't even go to the same wedding, a Muslim and a Christian wedding the same day. I remember when we had the ECOMOG coming in, and when they saw us going to weddings on the same day, going to church and mosque, they said, if this is in Nigeria, they'll burn down both the mosque and the church. It's not happening in Sierra Leone. That's how peaceful we are. It doesn't mean that we don't, conflict does arise, but it's how do we resolve it. And that's the resilience principle that we're going to continue to build around every issues, every threat around the country. That's why we'll be doing the fragility studies around the 190 chiefdom, understand the threat analysis and also the conflict situation, root causes, and we use this methodology of resilience to address this so that communities will own the conflict prevention and resolution, and then we'll be able to move to another level in terms of our peace and social cohesion. Even with foreigners, we're very peaceful with foreigners. Why? A lot of, even going to Guinea, you find out that the hostility in some of our neighboring countries to foreigners are very, very hostile. So Sierra Leone, we're very peaceful and loving people.
I hope it remains that way.
We pray so.
Doreen, I wanted to ask this question. Through which means, or should I say criteria, does someone hand over, his or lady or gentleman to you?
So what we normally do is that we work with old people from various communities. Sometimes we go there and engage them. Since now the organization is now celebrating 5 years of existence, now the elderly people come for themselves. Sometimes they come with their relatives or maybe family members to come and ask what is the criteria to be part of the organization. For us, it is open. As long as you are 60 and above, you are entitled to whatever facility we are having. We have different categories of old people. There are some of them whom we are in their family can provide for them, and you have some whom their family cannot provide for them. So based on what we have for those whom their family cannot provide for them, when we have food, when we have clothes or whatever it is, we give it to them. Whilst the others, we find time to do some visitation. When we have parties or we have some engagements wherein they need to come together and be somewhere that only just for old people, we engage them. So we try to balance, the different categories of old people we have in Sierra Leone, just to ensure that we cater for all of them.
And would you describe what you're doing, a business or philanthropic gesture?
It's not a business because whatever we're doing for the aged is free of cost. We, like every first Wednesday in the month, we organize free breakfast and medical for all people is free. Sharing food to them is free. Giving them clothes is free. Whatever it is free. Some of them have built about 6 houses for 6 homeless aged in the country. It's free. We did not ask them to give us any money. For us, we believe that looking at most of their status, there is no way we can ask them to pay us for something that we know it is their right to enjoy, as people who have worked for this country over the years. So whatever we are doing is more philanthropist work than, looking at as if as a business. No, it is not a business we are owning.
Let's talk about the feeding of the 100 for a while. How will it unravel?
It's going to be happening in various communities, communities that are vulnerable. We are starting it today at Susan's Bay community. We'll target Susan's Bay community and Magazine Court because both of them are very close. And then the next one will be done in Kenema. And again, we'll bring it back to Freetown. So it's going to be for 12 months. It's going to be done once every 3rd Thursday in the month because we believe that in as much it's going to be once a month, but we know it will create an impact in terms of helping them to have lunch because most of them, they find it very difficult to have access to food. There was an old woman whom we met who was telling us that sometimes she has to chew cola nuts, as something to take her through the day because she doesn't have children and also there is no food for her to eat. So we are encouraging everyone to come on board. Like I said earlier, there is no funding for this. But to believe that all of us, we can do it together. We've been doing it together over the years. We've been giving free medical, free breakfast, sharing food, doing other stuff to old people. So I believe that we can continue again with this. And for this project, we also like to call upon the churches to support us because we've sent letters to some of them because some of these elderly people are part of their congregation and they have a lot of challenges which I know it is difficult for some of the pastors or the head of the church to discuss with them. I would say this first one we are launching, we would like to say thank you to Bishop Abuko Nguma who have started the ball rolling, and we are calling on others to join us, not just the churches but other people who are out there. There are some people, they have a lot of food at their houses which they just drop at the dustbin. It will be of essence to come and give some of those things to us like onions, oil, rice, plazas, whatever it is, you know that we can use to cook. And also fuel, because we'll be going to various communities and we have to use vehicle to go there. So whatever it is, we know that we can use to make this particular program a success. Will be very, very happy. So I'm calling on all those who came from Kenema to please support us for next month, because we'll be doing the free Feed the Aged project in Kenema. So we are calling on everyone to support us so that more old people will have something to eat on a daily basis.
How, what would you say your priorities are for the next 5 years?
Firstly, we would be looking at our just completed 3-year strategic plan. Because we're a new institution, we didn't want to have a very elaborate, we want to start small and grow big. Our next strategic plan will look at 6 years, because we want to align it with the medium-term development goal, and also the UN, because it will all end in 2030. So we do not want to fall short of that. We will also be looking at, I mentioned earlier, the fragility studies, looking at what's going on in every chiefdom. Fragility studies, conflict fragility studies have only been done at regional level in Sierra Leone. So now we're taking it to the chiefdom, so we understand the depth of every issues in the country. Fragility study will take up to almost a year to completion, and then we'll look at the recommendations from that studies. We'll have international and national bodies coming together to help us with those studies. And recommendations we will try to implement to the full. Even if we could implement 30% before next election, I'll guarantee that we have a very peaceful election, because we'll look at the amber, we'll ensure we'll take all those in red that's in halted crisis. If we could resolve 30% of them, I'm sure, because normally politicians like to campaign on conflict. And so if there is none of those kind of conflicts that they could use, then they'll go back to the issues. And that's what we want to see happen in Sierra Leone. We also would be looking at strengthening we have a peace situation room, which has been going on for 24 hours. You could call us at 898 from any network, and you always have people to pick up your call and report issues as they happen. It's been going on, and we've been using that with the security component, that security sector, to analyze what's going on a daily basis in Sierra Leone. So we want to expand on that a little bit, so for effectiveness and efficiency, because we are also working with our regional office so that we'll be able to address things as they happen around the country. So one of our critical components that we also work on is strengthening our regional offices and our stakeholders. We will be using a multilateral approach in terms of stakeholders. So multiple stakeholders will be utilizing on the ground at every district and chiefdom as we implement our rules and mandate. And we hope and pray, because this implementation will ask the religious leaders and also the paramount chiefs to take the lead. We would utilize the youth and the children as peace promoters, because these two groups have the biggest population in Sierra Leone. If we could capture the youth and the children, I'm sure Sierra Leone will be able to enjoy and grow into a very peaceful state right across. And we will also be able to export peace to other countries, which we also will look forward to, because as I speak to you now, we have countries that are also piggybanking on what some of the things that we've done, our successes, and how they could implement it in their country, which is a good kudos to us as Sierra Leone, for a country that is coming from war and is now peaceful. We would also look at how we could strengthen a lot of the capacity gaps that we have within the commission and within the community, because that's critical for us to be able to work efficiently. We need to strengthen some of these gaps that we have, or the capacity laps that we have within the commission and out of the commission. And we hope to continue partnership, not just with the government, but especially with international partners, so that will give us the independence that we need and we totally deserve, and we've been enjoying as well.
Sierra Leone has a very ugly past, you know, of carnage, war, destruction, and death. You know, judging from your personal perspective, you know, as a professional, looking at what has been happening in Sierra Leone over the last, let's say, 3-4 years. We've just observed January 6, a week or two ago. Do you think Sierra Leoneans have learned much from that carnage?
Firstly, let me say that we have a very youth and young population, and most of these people did not experience war or do not even understand what the war was all about. I'll give an example. We went to school function. This was mixed school function where different schools came together. And before I started, I had my prepared speech. But I asked a question before going into my speech. I said, how many of you have heard about the war? You were told by your parents or your guardian or even at school about the war. Less than 10% raised their hands. Less than 10% of that. This is a sample size now we're talking about. And I asked, how many of you have visited the Peace Museum? Only 2 have visited the Peace Museum. So going to the Peace Museum will give them at least some first-hand of what went on and where we are today as a country. Not visiting the Peace Museum means that you don't even have a clue of what's going on. And we do not even show some of those things on TV. Because, for example, the 20th of January was the day that Pakaba said the war done done. I don't know if AYV showed any documentary on that, because showing those kind of documentary will help to educate our youthful population and even remind our old folks, like all of us, as to what we've come through and where we are and why we need to guard our peace jealously. So, some people, whatever they're going through or whatever they're doing, I would say it's out of ignorance, because they do not even understand where we're coming from. So it is our duty, because one of the reasons why the commission was set up was to ensure that we have the full implementation of the TRC recommendations. And one of these things are to keep reminding the populace of where we're coming from and where we should go. And I think it's thanks to, I'll always say thanks whenever I go to the media, because the media, the bloggers, the TikTokers, the social media handles, they've been very instrumental in promoting peace and social cohesion. But how much have you been doing in terms of reminding people of where we're coming from? So again, I will give you that battle as media houses and social handles, that we need to go back and promote what we've gone through. This will remind us. I know different advocacy groups have also come out that we should also have a day to celebrate, and it's also part of the TRC recommendation to celebrate the war done done, right, or January 6th, annual. So that people will use that day, the entire day, just to remind, play on TV, radio, speeches, even scenes of the war, of what we've gone through as a nation. So that will bring to realization of what Sierra Leone have gone through, and that will guide us as to where we want to go and would help us to guard our peace jealously.
Definitely. I think it's such a remarkable feat, how we've journeyed, or the length of the journey we've made, right from the war to now. You know, and as you've said, indeed, there are a lot of people who are unaware about what actually happened, or what transpired, indeed. And yes, it's a task that even the media should co-opt, you know, to be, well, again, there are people who are easily offended or, you know, or disturbed by those images, but we'll try to see what we can do, you know. Because again, you have to understand the ethical, you know,
we do understand that, but
this.
I think we need to bring it. You could say it's via discretion.
Yes,
right?
Indeed.
But
I enjoyed the early, for instance, as well at Strathclyde College. You know, to write books about these things that people read.
But people don't read. How many people read?
The culture has dropped,
Exactly. So we need to tell the stories. People need to go back to schools. That could be one of our Peace Club activities, to go back to schools and just tell the stories. Whether verbally, right, whether by video or audios, if they don't want to see, even with the pictures. One of the things that I think we would also dialogue with the Ministry of Education is that they could encourage schools to come to the Peace Museum, and also encourage the Peace Museum to do a mobile exhibition in districts, so that at least, not just in Freetown, but even the district people will have a feel. I know the Commission for Relics, they're also trying to preserve a lot of the sites. So it becomes not just tourist sites, but also sites where children would go visit. Would help to amplify the messaging that we're all trying to promote. So we hope that this will come to light, not just for the month of the celebration, but it becomes part of our touristic views and history that will sell out to even people that will be coming into our country and to our children.
Surely. Doreen, what are your long-term, plans or vision for DOFA? Is there an emergency plan or long-term vision?
Of course. There are lots of plans on the pipeline for the organization. One of the main one is to have an elders village in the country, which we do not have. We only have just the king. Judges the sixth tomb. We want to see where we can have something like a community that will have a farm, will have different recreational centers, we'll have a dining hall, hostels, a lot of things in there, so that we'll not be taking them out of that place to say we are going out there to look for something else. Everything will be there. They have similar ones in places like Ghana countries. So we want to have a beautified place for old people wherein at your retirement age you can go and relax and have more fun with your peers. So that is one. And also we are coming also with other things which I will not mention now, which I believe is going to also be the first for us in Sierra Leone, to have something wherein we can be able to read and learn more about what old people have done in the country. We also have plans to take most of our activities to the provinces, because there are lots of old people in the provinces who need the same support we are giving to those in Freetown and other parts of the country. So there are lots, that we want to do, but like I always say, finance is a challenge, and we hope and pray that more hands will be put on deck to give support to this organization. We are transparent, whatever we are doing. When you give us something, we ensure we give it back to the old people, and the old people rely on us, in terms of looking at us to help them and be able to let them achieve their dreams. One might say, oh, they have gone old, but never mind. There is always a saying that as long as you have life, whatever you want to achieve amidst the age, you can still achieve it, as long as you have people who are there to give you the push and help you to realize your dreams in life.
The last time I think I noticed you organized a dancing competition among them.
Beauty competition.
Of course, what we normally do, we don't want old age to be very boring. For me, I always say to myself, I want to enjoy my old age. So that is why we are starting all of this now, so that when me too gets old, others, we will continue from where we are. We will stop as an organization. We do a lot. Like for us, we do Miss Old is Gold. It's a contest for elders, mothers. Now we are thinking of having fashion. We now have golden models. The men who are aged, they are now going to go into fashion, because it doesn't mean because you are old you should not look good. You can still look good, and then even at old age. So we are also doing different things. If you go to TikTok, you will see us dancing there with old people, doing a lot of stuff. Some of them, they do like a stand-up comedy, talk like how this comedian, just to keep them going. Because one thing about old age is very stressful for most people. Some of them, they are going through a lot in life. So we always find a way to help them. It's like a therapy, helping them to forget about some of the things they are going through and make them be happy, and let them know that as long as there is life, there is always hope for them.
Are they allowed to have sweethearts?
Of course, in fact, we are looking to organize the first aged married. We are in, of course, the organization will be strongly behind them to support them. And that is why we have a lot of activities. When they come, we tell them just feel free, make new friends if you want to make new friends, and whatever it is, because there should be no limitation when it comes to that, age or no age, as long as, you know, they need company. So there is nothing wrong with that.
How could you be reached if, let's say, someone wants to donate or call you or drop their gentleman or lady to you?
Yeah, of course.
Care home?
Yeah, the
Email
center
address?
is located at 10 Albert Street off Circular Road. We are there from Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay.
You can call us on +232 76 689 451 to make your contribution, whatever support, be it clothes, food, whatever it is, as long as it is something all people can use, we'll be very grateful. And we are still calling on everyone to come on board and support this new program, which is called Feed the Aged. If we are talking about Feed Salon, there should always be something for the old people, and that is why we are coming with it. And we are not just doing Feed the Aged, but we'll also be taking them through the human rights issues, and also helping them to know their responsibility so that they cannot get conflict with the law. So these are all of the things, and we'll be working with Human Rights Commission to help us with that in particular areas.
Right, thank you very much indeed, Doreen Barry. A few comments on our Facebook page. Management's approach to peace is better as to a fixing approach model. Conflict fragility studies must be based on human behavioral patterns, meaning the approach must constitute an anthropological angle, how behavior will affect peace. That's from Osfriend Kamara. Albert Lansana is saying, oh, the elderly, I call them. Paul Kano, we are shy as a nation to discuss about the senseless war because even TRC was not detailed with the truth. We should be playing documentaries of such carnage as a reminder to strengthen our peace and national unity. This is quite long, but I'll ask, my question is, I'll just read the portion. My question to the Peace Commissioner is, are you advocating more for social, economic, political and environmental justice? Remember, to achieve peace, it will be fully successful with proper justice. That is from Mos D. These are the comments. Just respond briefly.
First, we want to say that I did mention earlier that we do not work in isolation. We bring a multi-stakeholders approach in everything we do. We cannot function, peace cannot function without justice. We cannot function without Ministry of Finance. We cannot function without gender. We need to bring all the different components on board. So the fragility studies will look at what the issues on the ground are, and then we'll be able to distribute some of them to the appropriate, or all of them to the appropriate authorities, and we work together so that we'll be able to look at the most possible cost-effective way of handling those issues. Okay. And a lasting solution as well, because that's what we'll be looking at. It's not just haphazard. Remember, we'll be digging into root causes. As the TRC also recommend that we look into root causes, not just deal with things on the surface. So I want to tell that person that that's why we're having both international and national team to work on, because most of the time the international partners do not have the local context, objectivity to deal with issues. Okay. So there will be a blend for us to work in the ACO. We want to say to the other person that we would continue to do what we can to ensure that there is peace and social cohesion, because I would say Sierra Leone is a peaceful country. What we're working on is our social cohesion. That's why you have the tribalism and regionalism and all of these different cabals and cartels that we're looking at. So how do we bridge the gap to show that we're all Sierra Leoneans? These are some of the things that we'll be looking at for the next 6 years.
All right. For Doreen, Osfriend is saying Doreen Barry is doing a great job with the aged DOFA very trustworthy. Supporting her campaign for the elderly is worth supporting. I think he's asking a question: is the statistics evidence-based on social security safety? I think you mentioned the number
it's
of...
from Statistics Sierra Leone.
Okay.
The over 300,000 I'm talking about is from Statistics Sierra Leone. Right. I would just say thank you to the texters. Of course, it's worth supporting. Like we always say, if you support DOFA today, it means you've supported yourself tomorrow, because when you live long and you have a long life, you get to your old age, you also benefit from what is going on right now. I know many people will say, oh, I have money, I'm working very hard now, I have put together so much for my old age, but always know that when you get to old age, it's a different thing. Just pray that you have good children who will be there for you. Some people, they have spent so much on their children, but at old age, it's a different thing. Some of their children, they are too busy. Some of them are out of the country. They do not even have people, trustworthy people to look after their parents. And so these parents, they are suffering with all the monies they have kept for their old age. So that is why we are still calling on government for us to have a better policy and also an aging act that can help us as a country, wherein so much will be there to ensure that all people enjoy their old age.
Right, he's Doreen Barry, well, a former broadcast journalist, and now a philanthropist, and she's the founder of Doreen Tony Organization for the Aged DOFA. Of course, before her, you've been hearing from Hawa Salisamar. Hawa is the executive secretary of ICPNC. Well, what do you have? Yes. You want to?
We're heading to Parliament now.
Okay.
To lay the report, because according to our Act, we should always lay this in Parliament for Parliament debate. So we're on our way to Parliament, and that starts at 10. And this is a public document. It's nothing to do. Once it's been laid in Parliament, we hope to share soft copy. We cannot give everybody a copy. So the soft copy will be out for everybody to review, and also review and give your recommendations and comments for our next strategic plan. Thank you.
Right. Well, she has so beautifully summarized it this morning. And this is where I would end today's edition of the program Wake Up Sierra Leone. We say thanks very much indeed to our sponsors.